Do you want to know why Gerald Ford lost against Jimmy Carter in 1976? Look at the year 1976, pause the video, think about 3 reasons, and then let me know whether you have the same I have. So before I start with my 3 reasons, I'm going to tell you one reason I do not consider to be very important, even though one might think this, namely the loss in Vietnam. I think many people were simply glad about the fact that the war was over, even though the United States had lost it. And if you ask me, I do not think that many people really thought that Ford was responsible for the loss in Vietnam. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments, please. Now we come to the 3 reasons I consider to be more important. So reason number 1 is the way Gerald Ford became president of the United States. I think every vice president who moved up had certain difficulties to be seen as a full American president. And in Ford's case, this was even heavier. Spiro Agnew, Richard Nixon's actual running mate, had to resign in 1973. Therefore, Gerald Ford became the new vice president, and a few years earlier, this wouldn't have been possible. In this case, there would simply have been no vice president. The rule was new, and all the other vice presidents at least won the elections as running mates. Gerald Ford became vice president without ever being elected in a presidential election. Actually, I'd say being acting president is an advantage in elections. I think Ford didn't benefit from this as much as other presidents did. Only this? Well, I think there's something else which makes this a very important point. Normally, acting presidents are re-elected without much contradiction. Even Joe Biden won the pre-elections almost unanimously. In Ford's case, this was different. Ronald Reagan already participated at the Republican pre-elections in 1976. Even though he was the acting American president, Ford really had difficulties to beat him. And I think those who benefit from this were the Democrats, with Jimmy Carter. How should anyone believe in a candidate who is doubted that much by his own party? And I think Reagan's strong candidacy in 1976 can be referred to the fact that Gerald Ford wasn't elected for president. Looking at the whole story, I think it was a very clear advantage for the Democratic Party. Reason number 2, Watergate. I don't have to tell you that a scandal is a catastrophe for a party when it comes to an election. And 3 years later, this wasn't forgotten. The only time a president resigned in American history. 4 years earlier, Richard Nixon had still defeated the Democratic Party convincingly, very convincingly. Only one state and the District of Columbia voted for the Democratic Party back then. But after the whole Watergate story, Nixon's connivance about the burglary of the White House and his attempts to cover them up in front of the FBI were revealed, things turned around. People felt betrayed, and there was the will to punish the Republican Party. Not just that, after the next pre-elections, it looked even worse in the Congress for the Republicans than it did before anyway. For Gerald Ford, this made things even worse. And furthermore, he couldn't really achieve something because the Congress could simply block it. Many reasons to become unpopular, not many to become popular. And Jimmy Carter used this situation quite good, presenting himself as a grounded and very important and honest man. Carter's victory in 1976 was neither very close nor very clear. In situations like this, every reason is of course a little bit more important than at a clear election result. But if you ask me, the person Jimmy Carter didn't have much to do with the Democratic Party's victory in 1976. For sure, Carter used the situation as good as he could, and in other elections with a different context, this probably wouldn't have worked out. But in the end, the Republicans decided this election, not the Democratic Party. The third reason is that Gerald Ford used his presidential powers to get Nixon out of the affair. After Watergate, Nixon was seen as a crook. People felt betrayed and wanted to see that Nixon receives his punishment. Gerald Ford avoided this. Pardoning Richard Nixon was criticized a lot back then. Nowadays, many people praised this decision, also people who criticized it back then. Back then, not too many people thought like this. And Ford was even accused of having made a deal with Richard Nixon before he resigned that he would pardon him. It doesn't matter whether this was really true or not. The point is that some people thought this. Ford hadn't pardoned Nixon. He wouldn't have had anything to do with it. He might have been out of the affair. And if Nixon was brought to justice, Ford might have even received the image of the person leading out of this crisis. Watergate would have costed voters anyway, but maybe not that many. Years later, Ford said in an interview that Watergate cost a quarter of his work. The idea to pardon Richard Nixon was because Ford wanted to close this chapter and finally care for all the other problems the United States have. Many people say that the unrest that was caused by this scandal was reduced by finally closing this chapter. In the end, I always tend to say the Republicans lost because of Watergate, Gerald Ford lost because of the pardon. Do you agree? Let me know your 3 most important reasons in the comments. And if you are interested in American history, and you obviously are, because you watched this video till the end, you might also want to subscribe to this channel to get more content about American history. And if you can't wait, you might want to check out this video here, where I named 13 similarities between John F. Kennedy and Donald Trump. Thank you for watching.